People think power is about force, volume, or strategic behavior. That's not what actually shifts outcomes in real life. Here's what no one realizes until they see it firsthand. The person who reacts least anchors the entire interaction. Not metaphorically, not psychologically, mechanically. Attention gravitates to them. Others recalibrate around them, and outcomes bend toward their center of gravity, even when they don't speak, move, or assert anything. I didn't learn this from theory. I learned it by watching how people behave when one person refuses to leak urgency. If you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, "Why did I say that? Why did I agree to that?" This video will explain exactly why and how to reverse it. Stay with me. There is a strange social phenomenon most people never identify. When two people interact, someone becomes the emotional reference point. People assume it's the louder one, the more expressive one, the one who occupies the most space. It's usually the opposite. The emotional reference point becomes whoever is least destabilized, least rushed, least rattled. That person sets the rhythm, sets the pace, sets the emotional temperature. Here's the part that feels almost unfair. Once someone becomes the reference point, the other person unconsciously adjusts their tone, timing, explanations, and even their sense of certainty to match the calmer one. They don't realize they're doing it. It happens in real time, beneath awareness. And this automatic adjustment is what changes outcomes. Not dominance, not manipulation, not charisma, just non-reaction paired with self-containment. In this video, I'll show you why social influence follows the laws of emotional gravity, how non-reaction changes the behavior of the people around you, why urgency destroys leverage instantly, how to stop collapsing your center when stakes feel high, and how to adopt the kind of stillness that bends outcomes without trying, signaling, or forcing anything. Let's go deeper. There's a rule that governs social interactions so consistently that once you see it, you can't unsee it. People align with the most emotionally stable person in the room. This isn't motivational advice, it's observable. Watch any negotiation, any argument, any moment of tension, any interaction where uncertainty is present. Someone tries to push the outcome. Someone tries to secure validation. Someone tries to ease the discomfort. And then there is the one person who doesn't rush to fill the space. That person becomes the gravitational mass. They set the terms without saying a word. Everyone else orbits them. Why? Because humans are stability-seeking animals. We gravitate toward whatever feels least chaotic. The person who's not flinching becomes an anchor, a stable reference point in an unstable moment. And anchors shape outcomes, without force, without dominance, without strategy, just through being the one who isn't moved. Here's the inconvenient truth. The moment you act from urgency, you lose leverage. People can feel urgency even when you try to hide it. It shows in your micropauses, your breathing rhythm, your explanations, your tone, your speed, your need to fix the moment. Urgency is not loud, it's leaky. A single leak of urgency tells the other person three things instantly. You're afraid of a specific outcome. You're trying to preserve your image. You feel at a disadvantage, even if you're not. And the moment they sense this, their behavior adjusts. They become bolder, more certain, more demanding. They start controlling the pace, all because your urgency became a signal that you're psychologically below them in the moment. But here's the paradox. Most urgency is imaginary. It's not about the external moment. It's about the internal discomfort of not being in control. When you stop trying to repair the discomfort, when you stop reacting to your own reaction, your presence changes. And people feel it. Stillness is not passive. It's an active stance, a deliberate refusal to collapse inward or compensate outward. Stillness forces others to reveal themselves, their intentions, their insecurities, their assumptions, their need for control. When you don't react, you're not withholding. You're observing. And the moment you switch from reacting to observing, the entire dynamic reorganizes. Here's what happens. They start explaining more because your silence doesn't relieve their tension. They expose their real motives because you're not filling the gaps with guesses. They soften or overextend because they can't read your emotional position. They try to impress, justify, or validate themselves because you're not signaling a need for their approval. Stillness makes people recalibrate. Not because you exert pressure, but because you remove it. That absence of pressure forces them to deal with their own internal noise. And that internal noise drives them to adjust the outcome toward stability. Toward you. This is the part everyone misunderstands. Non-reaction is not a tactic. It's a state. You cannot fake it. You cannot imitate it. You cannot layer it on top of anxiety or insecurity and expect it to work. If your stillness isn't real, people feel the pressure behind it. What creates real non-reaction is internal stability. The ability to hold tension without relieving it prematurely. Your aim is not to become emotionless. Your aim is to become unflooded. Here's how the shift happens. Instead of trying to escape discomfort, you let discomfort exist. Instead of trying to control the outcome, you let the moment breathe. Instead of trying to prove anything, you remove the need to be evaluated. This creates a kind of psychological solidity that other people recognize instantly. The moment someone feels your solidity, they begin to orient themselves around it. Not because you force them, but because stable things attract attention. Unstable things chase it. People rush to fill silence because silence feels like exposure. But silence only feels like exposure when you're insecure about what might be revealed. When you stop fearing what silence exposes, silence becomes a strategic asset. It does three things. It slows the pace to your rhythm. It prevents people from overwhelming you with noise. It forces clarity, not from you, but from them. When you don't fill the space, their projections hit emptiness and fall apart. Their assumptions surface. Their exaggerations collapse under their own weight. Their emotional momentum loses energy. The interaction becomes transparent. You start seeing the real structure instead of the noise. This transparency is what gives you influence. Not dominance, not manipulation, just clarity. And clarity is leverage. Non-reaction changes outcomes because it forces other people to take responsibility for the next move. When you're reactive, people predict you, control you, shape you. When you're non-reactive, people reveal their strategy because they have to. Your lack of movement becomes a mirror. They show what they want, what they fear, where their confidence breaks, where their certainty is fake, how badly they need control, how far they're willing to push. The more they reveal, the more the outcome tilts in your direction. Not because you try, but because the dynamic becomes asymmetrical. You're stable, they're compensating, you're anchored, they're adjusting, you're observing, they're reacting. The person who reacts more always loses influence. The person who reacts less always shapes the outcome. This next part is the real transformation. When you stop reacting to external moments, you start noticing your internal ones. You notice where your body tightens, where urgency originates, where you fear losing approval, where you sabotage your own leverage, where your identity feels unstable. And when you observe these without trying to fix them, a strange thing happens. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your baseline rises. Interactions that used to feel high stakes become neutral. Confrontations become tolerable. Silences become natural. Pressure loses its power. You stop leaking urgency. You stop performing. You stop self-correcting in real time. People feel this shift, even if they can't explain it. And they treat you differently because of it. When you react less, you don't become passive. You become anchored. You start moving through the world without being pushed by every emotional ripple. You stop collapsing into other people's urgency. You stop adjusting yourself to preserve harmony. You stop trading your power for momentary relief. Instead, you observe. You listen. You hold. You stay with the moment long enough to see its real shape instead of the illusion created by pressure. And that's what changes outcomes. Not force, not strategy, not performance. Just the quiet, steady presence of someone who refuses to be pulled out of themselves. Someone who doesn't chase stabilization. Someone who doesn't collapse into urgency. Someone who isn't trying harder because they don't need to. When you become that person, you don't just influence people. You reorganize the entire dynamic around your center, subtly, calmly, effortlessly. This is the shift. This is the turning point. This is where power stops being something external and becomes something you carry.